Hello and welcome to a workshop of the OpenLM reporting. I am Sagi. I would like to welcome you to this workshop. Now, as this is a workshop and not a normal webinar, I would suggest that you open your OpenLM systems. If you are using any version but the light version, then you will be able to see all the reports that I will show you today with all the data. If you are using the light version, it might be restricted. So let's begin. What are we going to talk about today? So you already probably know the license usage report, you know the denials report, you know the utilization report, and the licenses not in use report. Now, going over these reports, I'm going to first show you how to combine between those reports and get a better insight from your system. I will also show you within each report a few things that you might not have known about the reports, a few checkboxes that you probably didn't know what they're doing, how to add a filter, how to add it to a desktop, and so on. Just fiddle around with the properties as well. So before we start, just a quick refresher on the OpenLM the OpenLM deployment. So you got the license server, which has the vendors. On it, you install the OpenLM Broker, which sends data to the OpenLM core, which sits on a network server. And if you want to query the data, if you want to see the reports, you just log on using any device. You remotely connect using your browser, and you can see the data. Now, let's jump to the system. I have two systems. One is a live system. The other is a client system, which had its server names and usernames, and everything was encrypted. Now, if you have your OpenLM, your interface, your EasyAdmin interface open, then simply go to Start, Reports, License Usage. Now, I'm going to start and explain a bit about the filtering options that you have, and then I'll explain how to use the report. So the filtering options, most of them are pretty self-explanatory. You choose the server name, you choose the vendor name, you choose the licensing type, and everything that you choose here will filter all the features that you have here. So if I click on this plus sign on the features, I'll be able to see all the filters, all the features that I have. And I'm also able to click Show Obsolete. Now, if you have a few versions or a few pools, or maybe obsolete licenses, obsolete features, then clicking on this will show you also them, and you'll be able to select them. You can also just select the feature and click Select All Versions. It will be the same as selecting all the versions if you show the obsolete. Now, we got the users, the workstation, the group, the project, also something that you can filter by. And here we got the aggregation. So you can even have it unaggregated, or you can show the aggregation by hours. Now, below that, we got the time span and also a filter manager. Now, let's say that you set all the filters that you want. I'm going to go over all the different checkboxes in a minute, but let's say that you set it and you want to save it. So you click here on this filter icon, you give it a name, let's call it test, and just save. If we want to load it, we simply click here and we select it. Click apply and then apply, and that's it. So let's select this, for example. So I selected it, clicked apply, apply again, and then I see the graph. Now, within this graph, I'm not going to explain in general terms what it does. Basically, it shows you the license quantity on the top and the concurrent usage on the bottom. Now it will show you the filter that you chose, but if you choose another filter, another feature, it will show you also that feature. So for this feature, I have two features, one in red and one in blue. I can even, if I click here, I can even change the color if I want. I can highlight it if I want. So this way I see both of them on the same graph. But maybe I want to see them as the same report. So the display separate chart lines for each feature needs to be unchecked. And then we can see them together, summed up together. So what is this aggregation right here? The aggregation can aggregate by the hours, by the days, the weeks, the months. The aggregation itself shows you the maximum value for that hour, the maximum value of concurrent usage for that day, for that week, for that month. So it can be the maximum value, but it can also be the average value. It can also be the minimal value. You can show it without the total or with the total. You can show it as a line, as a smooth chart, whatever you choose. Or you can show all of them together. Now, once I click on one point here, then it will open the license activity report and will show me all the sessions that are related to where I clicked. So it shows me all the sessions, when it started, when it ended, the usage time, and pretty much everything about it, which group they're from, just about everything. Now these names are encrypted because this is a client database. So of course that we can also ignore the weekends and consider only working hours, and let's see what it does. It cuts the report. It doesn't show us the outside the working hours or outside the working day, working week. Now, the filters also have two checkboxes right there. Include current usage, meaning that if someone didn't finish the session yet, then do you want to see it? Do you not want to see it? Mainly users want to see it because it's a license that was pulled. Now, exclude unconsumed reservations means that if this is unchecked, means that you want to see reserved licenses as used licenses. If this is checked, then it means that you want to see reserved licenses just as reserved, and you don't want to see them as used licenses. Now, what's the logic behind this? The user itself can have a reserved license on his name. So only he will be able to access the license, but everyone else, it's like a used license for them. They cannot use that license. So for the admin, really, it's a used license. It's reserved for someone, so it's pretty much like it's used. So this checkbox helps you to decide how you want to show it. Now, of course, that you can get it as a table, also as a heat map. Now, let's show only one of the features, so we can show it on the heat map. So this is the heat map right here. If you click here on the heat map tab, then we see a representation which is pretty much the same as represented here. So if is viewed from the side, this is viewed from the top. Here we can see that weekends, for example, are not really used. During the week, mainly the working hours are being used. We are peaking at about 1 o'clock right here. On 13th of March, we peaked at 1 o'clock. Now, this is the same in the graph. We see that it's peaking around 1 or 2 o'clock, and then it goes down, and near the outside working hours, we got only the reserved licenses right here, maybe some used, but not a lot. During the weekends, we see not a lot of usage. So we can see it in this way or in this way. So here we see that we maxed out the license at the 13th. So let's go to the 13th, and we see that it was maxed out at 1 o'clock. So the heat map and chart, this way you can tell, you can view it differently, either top-down view or side view, whatever you choose. And of course that you can ignore weekends and consider only working hours, and then you see that mostly it's close to 100%, it's like 90%, 80%, like let's say average 80%. Now, once the license here gets maxed out, then users start getting denied. So if we click Start, Reports, Denials, then we'll be able to see the denied sessions. And let's take the same time span. So let's take start time from that report and the end time from that report and put in the denials. Now we can see it by user, by server, by vendor, by feature, whatever we choose. But I want to show you the denials within the hour, within the period. So let's select the same server. So it's server 2. Now let's select also the same feature. It's this one. And we see that we only have 2 blocks of denials. One with 7 denials on the 13th, and one with 1 denial on the 31st. So on the 13th, we're supposed to have 7 denials because, well, we don't know because what, so let's click on the table. If we scroll to the right, we can see that the denial reason was license number of users already reached. So we know that it was supposed to be maxed out at some point on the 13th. So let's go here, let's check the 13th. And we see that we're actually maxing out around 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, it's all maxed out. So we are able to see it here. We have 7 denials right here. On the 31st, we have 1 denial. On around 11, 12 a.m. And we see that we have a denial for that. Now, does that mean that I need 7 licenses for that? No. It just means that users try to get it, like not 7 times, but 7 users try to get it not in quick succession, but 7 users tried to get it for that time. This is because we show only true denials. If I check this off and click apply, then I have now 24 denials here. And if I do click the true denials, I have only 7 denials here. Now, what's going on? Now, a true denial is, well, let's say that you're an engineer and your user and your application, went out to the license manager and it tried to get a license and it got denied. So it didn't get the license from the first server, but then it went out to server number 2, and it did get the license from server number 2. So the first denial that was on server 1, do you care about that? Most of our clients, they don't care about that because that denial is not true. That denial, the user did get a license eventually, so the first denial is omitted from the report. This is why only 7 denials. Now, this report, as I've showed you, you can aggregate however you'd like. You can get it as a table, and you can also export it. If you click here, under the table tab, you can export it, but you can also do the same with the license usage report. You can export it right here. You click and it exports the report to a CSV file. Now, if you want to filter out some denials, let's say that you don't want to see a certain denial type, like you don't want to see restriction or authorization. You don't want that to get into your system. So if you go to Start, Administration, then you'll be able to go to Denials right here and add a server and add a error code that you don't want to come into OpenLM. So like this error code, the license server itself gives out this error code. So you can set this error code to not show, and then it will simply not be incorporated into the OpenLM system. Now this is great. We saw how to combine the license usage bar chart to understand what it means on the heat map and to see how it connects to the denials. Now, I want to show you how this connects to the license utilization report. So if we go to Start, Management, License Utilization, we'll be able to see the license utilization report, which shows you how many licenses you actually need. Now, how can it do that, and what are we seeing here? Just a quick recap. This report shows you the amount of time in percentages spent on each usage level. So one license used was 83% of the times, while like 40 licenses used at the same time is like 6% of the time. So you say, oh, this doesn't match. What happens here? This is because it's aggregated. One license is encapsulated inside 2 licenses because you can't get to 2 licenses without pulling 1 license. You can't get to 3 licenses without pulling 1 and then 2 licenses. So you can show it not aggregated if you choose. And then you can see the percentage, the actual percentage spent on each usage level. Now, what does that give us? It gives us an option to set a quality of service line. Now, what is quality of service? Let's say that you're okay with the fact that 95% of the times your users will get the license. 5% of the times they will get denied. So let's say that you're okay with that, so your service to your users will be 95%, meaning that for this feature, which I have 70 licenses for, I only need 45 licenses. Now, that's a huge reduction. If I'm okay with only 90%, I only need 30 licenses. That means that out of every 10 times, 9 times they will get the license, 1 time they will get denied. Statistically speaking, of course. Now you see that I need only 30 licenses. Now that's a huge reduction. That's more than half of the licenses that I have. I simply don't need to buy next time. Now here, of course, that you can also ignore weekends and consider only working hours. So let's see what happens when I do that, when I consider only the working hours and pretty much narrow the usage time, the utilization's time span, to the working hours, to when there's supposed to be usage. So if we click apply, we see that it rose a little bit, but I want to compare. Let's take, for example, let's take this filter. And let's say that we want this part. Let's start 16th of January. So let's take this, put it in the start time, 16th of January. That'll also get this. And we want a 5th of April. Just so we narrow it down. So it's the 5th of April. Let's hit apply. So you see that immediately it changed. It changed to be more well utilized. So the 1 licenses, 2 licenses, 3 licenses, that was most of the time. That was like 99% of the time, like 13 licenses were pulled. Why? If we look here, then we can see that it never went below 15 licenses. Like it was, here it was 12 licenses. But always, they always had an amount of licenses, like almost 99% of the times. And you see that it changed my quality of service. So if I want to set a quality of service within the working hours of 90%, then I need 60 licenses for it. This way you can tell the if your license, if your feature is healthy, meaning that let's say that it's mostly 100%, and like you see here, it starts dropping and the quality of service is not far from what you have. So you see that this feature's utilization for this time span is pretty good, because within the time frame of the working hours, it was mainly close to being maxed out, like maybe 80%. So we know that we can buy a bit less, but the license itself is healthy. You see that it's maxing out right here, it's maxing out right here, but basically it's pretty healthy. We see here it's close to being maxing out most of the times, but it's not really maxing out a lot. And the utilization shows a good graph, which mostly 100% of utilization. Now I see I have a question. How can you tell what number you should be at if the quality of service percent cannot be reached? If the quality of service cannot be reached, meaning that even if you put 100% and it doesn't show you anything like this cannot be reached, that means that you see right here, you'll need more than the licenses you have in order to reach 100%. The 70 licenses was only used 0.09% of the times. It's not 0%. Because if we take a look at the license usage, we see that it was maxed out. So if it was not maxed out at all, then we'll see that we will be able to set a quality of service that will show you the 0 right here, 100. But no one goes for 100. how can you extend the graph to show you how many licenses you will then need? You cannot extend the graph beyond the number of licenses that you have. If your utilization goes close to 100 at all times, and you can't really reach 100% utilization, that means that you need to check your denials. You need to check if you might have many denials. If your utilization is close to 100 most of the time, it's even peaking. Your license usage report shows you that you're very close to the quantity line. And then you can see if you have denials, if users are actually using it, if it's healthy. Like if you see the license utilization close to 100% most of the licenses, and you see not a lot of denials, so you see that it's pretty healthy. But if you see this case, but you see a lot of denials, you know that most of your engineers are waiting for licenses most of their day. So this is very costly. And let's say that you really need more and more licenses. You need to increase the amount of licenses that you have, not decrease the amount of licenses that you have. So this you can tell using the denials. So let's say that statistically you get 5 denials a day, five true denials a day, or maybe you have 5 users that try to get a license and get denied during the day, that you know that you need just about 5 licenses. So you buy those 5 licenses, and then you see the utilization, you see the license usage, and you see what you need, how many exactly you need. And now I want to show you a few cool things that you can do with the OpenLM report. A few options that you might have missed. So the first option is the filter. So once I create a filter, I can click here and I can just save it by the name. I'll just call it save. And when I want to pull it up, I just select it right here and click apply. Now, let's say that I want this to be created when I open OpenLM. So I click here on the OpenLM icon and I click properties. Now I can open at application startup. So let's check that, and we can start it up with this filter, with the save filter. So when we open up the EasyAdmin, it will load up with this filter. Now we can also, if we go back to this drop down here, we click on the icon, we'll be able to add shortcut to desktop. So let's click on it, and it asks me which filter do I want. So I want the save filter. Click OK, and now where did it put it? Which desktop? Now this means the OpenLM desktop right here, license usage, save. When I click on it, it will open the license usage report with this filter that I chose. So one click on it, loads it up, loads the correct data, and that's it. It's got all the filters that I've selected. Consider only working hours and everything. Now you can also set it to refresh. So if you go to properties right here, you can enable auto refresh and you refresh the page, the report itself, so it will be a live report. On the license usage report, you can pull this bar down here and get a more granular resolution of your data. Now, moving on to the denials report, Something that I missed and I want to show you is that you can filter out the report, sorry, the error that you want. So you only want to see the limit reached, for example, or you only want to see the license server error, for example. And of course, this also has the properties, add shortcut to desktop, and this you can find in all the reports. Also the export, but also all the reports have the share option. You can share a link to the report, but the user must have access to this machine, to the this machine that has OpenLM Server. You can share it by email, or you can simply schedule it. Click share and schedule. You'll be able to schedule a report to be sent out. So, for example, you can get an email for a weekly report for the last 7 days, and you can set it to notify you every week. So every week, Monday, you get the weekly report. Now this requires downloading the OpenLM report scheduler from our website, from OpenLM, the downloads page. You can find the report scheduler. You need to install it on the same place as the OpenLM server. And once it's installed, you'll be able to schedule different reports. And this is pretty much it. I don't want to overload you with data. I just went over the main reports of OpenLM. I showed you how to connect between them. So for example, how to connect between the license usage report and license utilization report and get an insight on those reports. Also how to connect the license usage to the denials report and basically get a complete picture either using a chart or a heat map, but you can get a complete picture of your licenses and their status. And that's about it. Thank you very much for listening to the webinar. Thank you very much for joining. I hope that you picked up something that you might not have known. Some clients did not know that the export button exists. Some clients did not know that the icon is clickable. I hope that you walked away with something and that you understood a bit better how to combine between your reports and get better insights on your licensing usage. So thank you very much. Thank you all. If you have any questions, gotta leave 5 minutes for it. So go ahead. You can ask using your chat or the question box of the GoToWebinar, or you can just use your microphone. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hope you had an interesting time. If you have any questions, let us know. You can send us an email to support@openlm.com. You can contact us via the chat or just by phone. We have our number in the contact us part of the our website. Thank you very much.